And a great day for Phillip Rivers because, listen, he came to his own conclusion, Teak, ready to hang him up. Never won the Super Bowl, got to an AFC championship game, 64,000 yards, whatever it was, 400-plus touchdowns, the greatest player never to win a Super Bowl, one of them. An amazing accumulation of stats and a hell of a player. I've always been a huge Rivers fan, just tough and an easy leader, kind of a throwback, loves playing football, as evidenced by his decision. Now he goes and coaches high school down in Alabama. There's been better quarterbacks than Rivers. Yeah, there have been for sure. There's been guys who have won a lot more. But, listen, Rivers hanging him up to me is a little bit of a I don't say sad day. I don't overstate it, but it's definitely a changing of the guard. They don't, quarterbacks are he was an inherently tough quarterback and a really good quarterback. And I loved watching Phillip Rivers play. I always did.
Yeah,
I always love watching him play.
He'll be remembered for his longevity. I mean, 17 years and missing only games because he was sitting behind Drew Brees at the beginning of his career. That's the only reason he didn't play for 2 seasons out in San Diego at the time. And ultimately, 240 straight. He was always available. It's not dissimilar to the interesting trade partner that he was associated with back in 2004 when Eli was drafted by the Chargers. By the Chargers, and the Giants took Phillip Rivers at number 4, and they swapped. So, I mean, it was really interesting to see the parallels of their careers, and I know they'll always be tied. Rivers obviously has the statistical advantage. He probably even has the eye test advantage. One thing that you put in Eli's check column, and it's an enormous, magic marker check, is the 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. But that takes nothing away from what was an unbelievable dream. He even said this, his childhood dream to play football for as long as he did. And I don't think a lot of people knew who he was coming out of North Carolina State and hadn't seen him play in the ACC. And he's got this odd, basically sidearmed but over-the-top delivery. It's like, how does he even complete passes? Yet he talked trash like no other.
Yep.
I mean, he's
never cursed, though.
Never cursed. Daggone it.
Yeah.
That kind of cursing going on. But
he's a pure trash talker.
Trash talker, but a throwback, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he'll be missed for sure because he was unique. He didn't fit the corporate mold of the CEO quarterback in the NFL. It wasn't him. He spoke it and wore it right on his sleeve, and I think that's why his teammates and his opponents respected him so much.
Yeah. While a lot of his peers were up there wearing a couple of $1,000 suits, he was rocking a bolo tie. Remember that?
I know.
I actually had one of those.
Oh, my Lord.
I did. And I wore it for a little bit. Yeah, there was I don't know, year phase. I don't know where, maybe a 90210. I don't know where it came from. I got it for Christmas one year. I actually wore it. I showed up at my girlfriend's house. She said, "What is that? Who are you? What is that?" Didn't wear it much after that. All right, so it's 421 touchdowns. Just before we get into now what's next for the Colts, so put it in proper context. So he's got a little more than 200 more touchdowns than picks, right? Mentioned this yesterday. Joe Namath has 50, totally different game, clearly, but Joe Namath 50 more picks. 50 more picks than touchdowns. Led the league in picks 4 times. Terry Bradshaw, 2 more touchdowns, just 2 more touchdowns than picks. Dan Fouts, 12 more touchdowns than picks. And even the great Johnny Unitas, who is thrust into, that Peyton, Brady, stratosphere below them, but kind of inserted there more than the other names I just mentioned for sure. Even Unitas only had 37 more touchdowns and picks. You want a comparison to how much the game has changed? Again, Phillip Rivers had over 200 more touchdowns and picks, and he's not considered, while he'll be a Hall of Famer, not considered, one of the top 2 or 3 or even 4 from this generation necessarily.
Yeah.
The game's totally different.
Yeah,
totally different.
Look, he's a Hall of Famer. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of when he gets in. And which one of his peers are going to be pushing him? Like, does Drew Brees retire? Because Drew Brees is going to be a first ballot guy. Phillip Rivers probably could be if there are no other quarterbacks on the ballot. I don't think Peyton's going to linger for any years. He'll be first ballot. I'm trying to think who else is recently retired that can linger. Eli. He's probably maybe second ballot guy. So maybe that becomes a debate, to be honest with you. If Eli doesn't make it his first year, and then the second year they go head-to-head, which would be fitting. Would be very fitting. And look, there's an argument that Phillip should be ahead of Eli because of what he did in the regular season, talking about Hall of Fame credentials, not postseason.
For sure. I don't think anybody really give you a spirited debate on that outside of the devout Giant fans who are not listening to you when you delineate between the Super Bowls and maybe just the broad meat of the accomplishment. Week to week, Phillip Rivers was better, but we don't need to drag Eli into this. Eli's going to get in. Phillip's going to get in here. And now we get to the multitude of options for the Colts, who, by the way, you want to talk about an appealing landing spot for a quarterback right now. Top 10 defense in terms of points per game. Top 10 offense in terms of total yards and points per game. They've got one great defensive player, a couple of really good defensive players, a young blossoming crew of wideouts, a couple of, that running back stable is far from empty. They've got more than one, even though a few guys have been banged up. We know about the offensive line. We know about Frank Reich. When you look as a coach and an organization, they're pretty much top notch. When you look, I've actually got probably, as I look at the page, 8 or 9 viable options.
Yeah.
But I want to flip this to you first. The best option for the Colts would be?
The best option for the Colts would be Matt Stafford, trade for Matt Stafford. But I don't know if that's going to happen, but it could. We'll see what Dan Campbell's tolerance is, who's now officially the head coach of the Detroit Lions. And congrats to my former teammate, Dan Campbell. Who
we got to get him on the show soon,
Tiki. He was fantastic. He's a great dude. He's been toiling for years, learning the craft of being a coach, both as a position coach and then as an interim head coach with the Dolphins, we all remember, and then now with the New Orleans Saints, or previously with the New Orleans Saints, now is with the Detroit Lions. I love this hire because he's tough. He reminds me of what Mike Vrabel brought to the Tennessee Titans. So just as an aside,
good comparison.
I'm excited for my former teammate Dan Campbell, and congratulations to him. Yeah, we will certainly get him on the show at some point. But
by the way, Tiki got 6 years too. He got the extra. Exactly. He got the 6th year.
Exactly.
Good for him.
But he's got to make a decision about what he's going to do at quarterback.
Is that his decision, though, with something with Stafford?
I'm assuming that, when you hire a new head coach, it's, all right, coach, we got to do this, and this. Tell us your plan. And so at some point, he's got to have some input regarding who his quarterback is. That is the responsibility you give a head coach.
Yep.
Now, knowing Dan, he's probably going to run it back with Matt Stafford, because he knows that Matt Stafford's one of the great quarterbacks who doesn't get a ton of the credit in the NFL. But with that said, if all things being equal, and I have a list too of some of the veterans that are out there, and maybe some of the draft equity that's available for them, of all the potential free agents or guys that could be traded for, and I'm talking Andy Dalton, Sam Darnold, Stafford, Ryan, Mitch Trubisky, Carson Wentz, Jameis, and Mariota, and in the draft, Matt Stafford would be the number one wish list if I was the Detroit Lions. If I was the what am I forgetting? The Colts. If I was the Indianapolis Colts and pulling him from the Detroit Lions. After that, BT, I'm going in the draft and I'm taking Mac Jones or someone like that. Because I think that some of the other vets, there's too many question marks around them. The one that doesn't have a question mark as a vet is Matt Stafford.
Stafford would be my top choice, too. And without being repetitive, because you mentioned Matt Ryan, you mentioned Andy Dalton, you didn't mention Deshaun Watson, and I think you absolutely have to talk about that as a possibility. Go ahead.
I just worry about what you have to give up to get Deshaun Watson.
It's Deshaun Watson. I wouldn't worry about that at all for a team that could conceivably win the Super Bowl next season if Deshaun Watson's your quarterback.
They've been historically very conservative about giving up draft equity because they know, and talking about the Colts now, they know how valuable it can be. And we saw this, 3 or 4 years ago, Luck's penultimate year. You saw them remake their offensive line really in a draft. And so I don't think that they're going to give up the equity to get a Deshaun Watson, but if they do, that would be the ultimate one. But
you got to shoot for the top.
That's a lot to give up, though. And I don't know if you necessarily need them because your team is really well put together. You know what I mean? So you're going to that conversation. Are we a quarterback away, or are we just a game manager type player away?
Well, no, they're not. To me, they're not a game manager player away, and I'm not even sure if you're saying that, but you're definitely not there is no way. See, if the Colts want to win a Super Bowl, it's one thing if they just want to be, merely competitive and battle the Titans for divisional.
They don't need to do that, though.
To do what?
They don't need to put that bar that low.
Precisely. That's what I'm saying.
Their goal should be Super Bowl.
That's what I mean. So if the one objective is to, again, battle the Titans for a couple of years for divisional supremacy, no, you don't need to necessarily go out there and get Deshaun Watson. You can attack that through a different course of action, some of which we've already mentioned. If you want to actually, go to Arrowhead in front of 70,000 people next year and beat that team, or go up to Buffalo with Josh Allen, if things, I know guys get hurt and things change, but I'm assuming both of those teams will be fully legit next year. You're going to probably need somebody like Deshaun Watson to get the job done, in my opinion. Now, you didn't mention Jimmy Garoppolo. I wouldn't do that. Let me give you one option, though, that you didn't mention. You can throw out there Dak Prescott, but that seems like a clickbait pipe dream. I don't know if I love this, but I would be somewhat open to. Now, I've got to do more player evaluation on this one part, but because if you talk about the draft, right, now they have the 21st overall pick, which would be problematic in getting Deshaun Watson, because if you're going to make a trade, and if the Texans are going to really trade Deshaun, they're going to trade him with the Jets, who have number 2, with the Dolphins, who have number 3. Number 21, I don't think it fits what the Texans should be trying to do if you draft Deshaun. So if you trade Deshaun. So I'm with you. While I would do it if I'm the Colts, I don't think the Texans would do it with them. What I could do, right, I could sign Ryan Fitzpatrick for a year, right? And assuming if they stay at the 21st spot, the Colts, now you're not going to have access to a guy like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence. You might have access to Mac Jones. What about for a year, Fitzpatrick and Trey Lance for a year?
I don't know if I trust Ryan Fitzpatrick to be what Ryan Fitzpatrick was for the Miami Dolphins.
He's been that for a couple of years, though, T. We keep saying that. The guy keeps balling.
I understand
we
that.
Keep saying this.
But you're conveniently forgetting the pitfalls of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Which are, what, the picks?
Which are the interceptions and I go from throwing 400-yard, having 3 straight 400-yard games with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to getting benched because I just can't get it done. Wait,
but you talking about getting benched with the Dolphins?
No. Getting benched by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, he got benched because you're paying a guy, he's the first overall pick. You had to put Jameis back in. Jameis was suspended.
Yeah, but he played.
That's why he played the first 2 games.
Yeah, and he played poorly in the third one. That's my point.
No, I understand, but they were going to go back to Winston. Come on.
Look, I don't think that the Colts want to play that. It's a difficult game, and you really have to manage it well. And at the end of the day, you also have to believe that Trey Lance is going to step in and be that guy. And I don't know. I can't sit here, and I'm not going to pretend to be some guru. I'm not going to be Mel Kiper and tell you Trey Lance is going to turn into the greatest quarterback we've never heard of.
No, I agree.
Blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah,
smart. Me neither.
I have
I'm not
no
doing
idea.
That. Me neither. I have no clue.
I think he is a project, and that scares the hell out of me. I'm a team that can win this next year or the year after that.
Fair enough.
So
but that's why
I don't love that.
Gotcha. The reason why I like it more than you is, and again, this is all predicated on me doing, from a Colts point of view, doing our, miles of due diligence and walking away saying, we love this kid Lance. We know he's raw. He's not ready for a year or so because he played 1 game this year, plus the competition's lower. So it would take a year to really gas him up and get him ready. If they believe that his talents would speak to an eventual leap of faith of that magnitude, and it's kind of a leap of faith. I'm with you. But the ability to retain your draft capital, which they would do because you'd be drafting him at 21 or maybe moving up a few slots to nab him at like 15 or 16, whatever it requires. And all you have to do is merely pay Fitzpatrick $12, $13, $15 million for a 1-year stopgap. I think there's worse options than maybe raiding the cupboard and giving up everything you have for Stafford, or doing that for Matt Ryan, or doing that for Carson Wentz to reunite him with Frank Reich. I'm not saying it's perfect. To me, it's interesting. You don't like it as much. I get it. But the point is, they have a lot of options.
No,
that's the point.
They really do.
They have a lot of options, and they're a good franchise. And they usually, when they have time to decipher what they want to do, they generally do the right thing, which leads us to this conversation coming up next. it's not just the Colts, and it's appealing. Good offense, good defense, good coaches, we said. But there's other jobs out there that we anticipate will be open or theoretically are already open. But is the Colts the most appealing one? What's another landing spot if you're a quarterback that you say, man, I'm about to shake free contractually and I could go there? That's where I want to go. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.